Okay, students, now we're going to cover the muscles of the forelimb. We're going to start with the medial aspect first. The muscles that we're going to cover on the medial aspect are going to be the epitrochlearis, the biceps brachii, and the triceps brachii long head. Now we're going to see the long head on both the medial and lateral aspect, but we're going to do that in a second. So the epitrochlearis, being the first muscle that we're going to cover, is really and truly, once you clean away some of the fat, it's going to be the first muscle that you encounter of the forearm or forelimb. The epitrochlearis is going to have its origin in the fascia of the latissimus dorsi and its insertion on the olecranon process of the ulna. So remember, humerus is going to be the upper part of the forelimb, and ulna and radius are going to be the lower part of the forelimb. So the epitrochlearis is actually located right here. Now you may need to just kind of use your blunt probe. Be very careful. These muscles on the medial aspect of the forelimb are pretty thin. So it's this band muscle that's right here. It's extremely thin. I'm going to kind of dig a little bit in the armpit to see how far it goes. You may want to use some forceps to kind of tease some of the connective tissue off of the surface of the muscle so you can see the border. You see how easy that comes away? Again, that's just connective tissue. And then you can see the borders of this muscle just a little bit better. I'm going to go ahead and use scissors at the cranial aspect of that muscle. And then I'll use the probe and go just underneath that muscle. And you'll note it's very thin. Again. That would be the probe going through the muscle, so you have to be extremely careful. This very thin muscle. I'm lifting now from the posterior border. And as I have my thumb placed in the cranial border and the blunt probe placed in the posterior border, this muscle is the epitrochlearis. Okay. Now, going a little bit under the insertion of the pectoral muscles and removing some of this connective tissue, we're going to dig in an upward direction, and the muscle that we get to that's slightly covered by the epitrochlearis is going to be the biceps brachii, which is right here. And you'll note that the origin of the biceps brachii is the border of the glenoid cavity of the scapula. So again, that's where the humerus and the scapula are going to articulate, and the insertion is the radial tuberosity of the radius. So deep in there would be the origin, out towards the insertion, you're going towards the radius, and there's your biceps brachii. Now, the last muscle that we're going to look at on this particular side is the triceps brachii long head. Students, please remember, if one of the three heads of the triceps brachii is pinned, you cannot just call it triceps brachii. You must say which particular head it is. They are very different looking at the anatomy of the cat. So the long head, also known as the wattle area, right, is located right here at the more posterior edge of the humerus or the forelimb. So the long head of the triceps brachii is right here, and you have the origin being the border of the glenoid cavity of the scapula, and the insertion, the olecranon process of the ulna. So again, this muscle would originate deep to the articulation of the humerus and the scapula and come all the way out to the olecranon process. So again, on the medial surface, we have the biceps brachii, the epitrochlearis, and the triceps brachii long head. I'll go ahead and pin those white for biceps brachii, purple for epitrochlearis, and blue for the long head of the triceps brachii. Now moving to the lateral aspect of the forelimb, again, you can see the long head of the triceps brachii. We'll go ahead and find that border of that muscle, and you'll notice right here, it's a very well-bodied muscle. So we'll kind of just let the scissors go around. And using the blunt probe, you can see that that was just connective tissue that I went through. Again, we have the long head of the triceps brachii. The next muscle just cranial to that muscle is the lateral head of the triceps brachii. We'll kind of just go ahead and separate that muscle out. You'll notice you can generally see the border of this muscle. Now don't get this lateral head of the triceps brachii confused with a muscle we already went through. That again is your clavodeltoid. So we just want to get in here, separate out that connective tissue. And get a good look at the lateral head. Okay. So there's the lateral head right here. I will go ahead and mark that with a yellow pin. And then if you open this up and go between the border of the lateral head of the triceps brachii and the long head of the triceps brachii, you will be able to find the medial head. Now, it is much smaller in size, and do not, I see I have a pin from the medial side poking out through it, but I will designate this one with an orange pin. So for the lateral surface of the arm, I have the long head of the triceps brachii, the medial head of the triceps brachii, and the lateral head of the triceps brachii. That's the lateral portion of the forearm of the cat. Again, for the medial portion, don't forget you can see the long head of the triceps brachii again, also the epitrochlearis, and the biceps brachii. That is the end for that section of muscle.